5 men sit cross-legged in a quiet park outside a city called Varanasi. The grass is still wet from mourning. Deer move through the trees in the distance, unbothered, the way animals move when they have learned that no one here will hurt them. The 5 men are not at peace. They have just finished agreeing on something, a pact. A man is walking toward them on the road, and they have decided together exactly how they will treat him. They will not rise. They will not bow. They will not offer him water for his feet, the way custom demands for an honored guest. They will allow him to sit, because that much courtesy cannot be refused to anyone. Nothing more. You would understand their anger if you knew what they had been through together. For years, these 5 men starved themselves beside this same man. They sat through monsoons and burning summers, eating less and less, testing how far the body could be pushed before it broke. They believed, the way you believe something when you have given your whole life to it, that suffering was the price of awakening, that the harder the body suffered, the closer the spirit came to truth. And then, one day, their companion stood up in the middle of that practice and walked away from it. He had grown so thin that he could press his hand to his stomach and feel his spine. He collapsed once by a riverbank and was mistaken for dead. And in that state, something in him recognized a simple, devastating fact. A starved mind cannot see clearly. A body in agony has no room left for wisdom. He had nearly killed himself, chasing an idea of purity that was in the end just another form of violence against himself. So he accepted a bowl of rice milk from a village girl. He ate. To the 5 men watching, this was betrayal. This was failure dressed up as wisdom. This was a man who had simply run out of will, choosing comfort and calling it insight. They could not stay near someone who had given up. So they left him. They walked to this park, to Isipatana, the deer park, and continued the practice without him, convinced they were right, and he was lost. Pankavajaya, the group of 5, that is what the old texts call them. 5 men bound by a shared failure they had not yet recognized as failure. And now the man they left behind is walking toward them again. They can see him from a distance, and at first, nothing about the sight troubles their resolve. He is just a man on a road, dust on his feet like anyone else's. But the distance is closing, and something is happening to the 5 of them that none of them planned, none of them chose, and none of them can yet explain. There is something in the way he walks now that none of them remember from before. Not pride, not the broken posture of a man who failed. Something closer to stillness, the kind that makes a crowded mind go quiet just by standing near it. One man's hand resting on his knee begins to move without his permission. They had agreed not to rise. They are about to break that agreement, and not one of them will understand why until it is already done. The man closest to him is the first to break. He had told himself, only minutes earlier, that he would not move. And yet his body is already rising. His legs already carrying him forward. His hands already reaching for the bowl and the robe the traveler carries. The exact gestures of welcome the 5 of them had agreed to withhold. The second man follows, then the third. By the time the 4th and 5th have risen, someone has already gone to prepare a seat. Someone else is fetching water, and the pact they made together in full agreement, with full conviction, has dissolved completely, and none of them gave the order to dissolve it. You know this feeling, even if you have never sat in a deer park outside an ancient city. You know what it is to decide you are finished with someone, to rehearse the cold greeting, the short answer, the distance you intend to keep. And then they walk into the room, and something about them has changed in a way you cannot name, and your anger reaches for its old grip and finds nothing solid to hold on to. You soften before you decide to soften. The body recognizes something the mind has not yet agreed to. That is what is happening here, not magic, not a trick of charisma. Something quieter and harder to fake, the unmistakable difference between a man performing peace and a man who has actually stopped fighting himself. They had expected to see the friend who failed them. What stood in front of them instead was someone whose stillness had weight, whose eyes did not flinch from anything. A man who no longer needed anything from them, which is exactly what made it impossible to withhold something from him. Still, suspicion lingers in their voices. One of them speaks first, calling him only by name, the way you address an equal, not a teacher. a small, deliberate withholding of the respect their bodies had already given away. He answers gently. He tells them not to address him that way any longer. Something in him has changed, he says, and he has come to share it with them if they are willing to listen. They are not yet willing. They remind him, not unkindly, that he abandoned the practice, that he ate when eating was supposed to be the enemy. How could a man who gave up on suffering have anything left to teach them about the end of suffering? He asks them a simple question in return. In all the years they starved themselves together, did they ever once arrive at the peace they were chasing? Silence answers for them. He tells them there are two roads people walk when they are searching for something greater than an ordinary life, and both of them are dead ends. One road is the life he left behind in the palace. Pleasure piled on pleasure. Every want satisfied the moment it appears. A life so cushioned that it never has to look suffering in the eye. The other road is the one they have all just walked together, punishing the body, starving the self, mistaking pain for progress. Indulgence numbs the question. Self-torture exhausts the one asking it. Neither one answers anything. Between those two roads, he says, he has found a third. Not a compromise. Not a softer middle ground for people too weak for extremes. A different way of seeing entirely. He tells them the truth he found beneath the tree, and he tells it the way you would tell someone something you wished someone had told you years earlier. Life, as most people live it, carries a quiet ache running underneath everything. Birth, aging, sickness, the loss of what you love, the failure to get what you want, even when you get everything else. The old word for this ache is dukkha, and it does not simply mean pain. It means something closer to a wrongness, a friction, a sense that nothing quite holds still long enough to be enough. You have felt this. The moment a joy you were certain would last simply ends. The ground shifting under something you built your whole identity on. The low hum of dissatisfaction that returns no matter how much you acquire, achieve, or accumulate. This ache has a cause, he tells them. It is not random, not a punishment, not simply the way things are and must remain. It is craving, the constant reaching for more, for different, for the next thing to finally make this feeling stop. You crave the relationship to fix the loneliness. You crave the promotion to fix the worthlessness. You crave the next pleasure to fix the dullness left behind by the last one. The craving never finishes its work, because the ache was never about the object you were reaching for. And here, he says, is the part most people never reach. If suffering has a cause, suffering can end. Not through more acquiring, not through more punishing, through understanding the craving itself clearly enough that it finally loosens its grip. There is a way there, he tells them. A path, not a leap. He calls it the middle way, the road between indulgence and self-destruction, and he is about to show them exactly where it leads. Notice what he has not done. He has not told them they are broken. He has not told them the years they wasted starving themselves were meaningless. He has simply named with total clarity the thing every one of them already felt and had no language for. That is the gift hiding inside this teaching. Not new information, but a mirror held up to an ache you already knew was there, finally given a shape you can work with. The path itself, he tells them, has 8 parts, though it is not a checklist to complete in order. It is closer to a single, integrated way of moving through the world. Right understanding and right intention shaping how you see. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood shaping how you act. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration shaping how you train the mind itself. Seeing clearly, acting honestly, training attention until it stops dragging you wherever craving points it. He does not ask them to believe this, he asks them to test it. To walk it, the way you test the floor under your foot before you trust it with your full weight. And as he speaks, something happens to the man named Kondañña, the eldest of the 5, the one who has known him longest. Something in him recognizes the truth before his mind finishes processing it. Not belief, not agreement, recognition. The specific, unmistakable feeling of finally seeing something that was always there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the dust over your eyes to clear. The old texts describe it as a dustless, stainless vision of truth opening inside him. Whatever happened in that moment, witnesses around him saw the change. Kondañña understood, And in understanding, he became the first person in the world to fully grasp what the man under the tree had found. You may have felt a smaller version of this. The instant a truth you had circled for years, without quite landing on it, finally clicks into place, and you cannot unsee it again. That is what is happening to Kondañña. Except this is the truth that ends suffering itself, arriving for the first time in a single human mind. This is the moment the old tradition marks as the beginning of something larger than one teaching, one teacher, or even one realization. It is remembered as the turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Dharma Chakra, set into motion in a quiet deer park, with no army, no spectacle, no miracle to announce it. Just 5 men who came to refuse a friend, and ended up becoming his first students instead. The wheel that began turning that morning never stopped. It moved from those 5 men to monasteries, from monasteries to centuries, from centuries to languages and cultures the speaker himself never lived to see. It moved far enough and long enough that it eventually reached you, sitting wherever you are sitting now, hearing a story that began under a tree and continued in a deer park, 25 centuries before your own ache, your own craving, your own quiet dissatisfaction. 3 things are worth carrying with you from this story. First, truth does not need to announce itself to be recognized. 5 men who had sworn not to bow ended up bowing before a single word of teaching was spoken, because something true does not require permission to be felt. Second, naming your suffering clearly is not weakness. It is the beginning of the only path that actually leads out of it. The ache you carry has a cause, and a cause can be understood, and what can be understood can finally be released. Third, the wheel that started turning in that deer park has still not stopped. It reached 5 skeptical men who almost refused to listen. It has now reached you. So here is a question worth sitting with, the way Kondañña sat with it that morning. Has there ever been a moment in your own life when your judgment of someone quietly dissolved before your mind could catch up and explain why?